We don't have a quote. I just realized that.
We don't necessarily need one, but I was going to say, Rohan calls for aid.
Oh, yes. I was going to quote, "'Twas the darkest depths of Mordor." The Led Zeppelin song, Ramble On.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was the one question for my Patreon. Shout out to Captain Hopper for submitting it. But yeah, I was looking up, because, Led Zeppelin, we'll get to this question, but just like I looked up Led Zeppelin and Lord of the Rings references, and they have quite a few. I'd known about Ramble On, because I say that all the time. Anytime like we say the word Mordor, in my head, I always... "'Twas the darkest depths of Mordor," because it's like the most ethereal part of the song. I love it. But yeah, they have quite a few, and I'd like to get into it. But welcome.
I think that's right. Yeah, welcome. I'm Jessica. He's Ben.
Yeah.
There's also a great Rush song called Rivendell.
I remember wasn't there a Rivendell's out here in LA for a while?
I don't know.
I feel like I remember, like, when I first got here, 2011, 2012, someone sent me a link to it, and I think the reason why I went is because it was a vegetarian restaurant, because, elves, leaves, obviously. But
Green Leaves? Are you talking about Green Leaves in Los Feliz?
Rivendell restaurant.
There was actually one. Was there?
Okay. It might have been Green Leaves. Maybe it was that. I thought it was called Rivendell's. I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, because Green Leaves, I always think about because of that song. Da 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 da, like that Green Leaves song.
Yeah.
You know what
I know what you're talking about.
No, it's okay. You can roast me all you want. It's just so nice. Everyone else does. It's so great to be roasted.
I mean, your mentor and hero, Seth MacFarlane, was like a roast master general for like 4 times. So
he was pretty great on those too.
Oh, that's like his bag. Like, why wouldn't he be good? Like, when
we interviewed him, he's like, "Oh yes, my friend Anthony Jeselnik, who I just think is the greatest comedian." I'm like, got it. Like, you know why he must love roasts? Because he's got that old croony vibe, and he loves all the old crooners.
That's his thing. Yeah, the Friars Club.
And they all did that. They did the roast and the dais and all that stuff, and that's some great. We tried to watch a couple on stream, me and Scott, and then it got racist really quickly. And
it's like there's the progression of comedy and jokes you can't make anymore, and then off to its own appendix is roast, where anything and everything goes, and everyone just laughs and has a good time, and like no one, like no matter what, I'm trying to think of like a comedian that's like got in trouble like since then, but like never have the roast been brought up. Like now that's like, it's like fair game for some reason. I don't understand it, but it's like, I don't know. It's crazy.
No, because I think the whole spirit is to go as mean as you can. Just like in the Aristocrats, the whole spirit is if you're whatever you say goes, because that's as long as you stick the landing. And I think the only time you would question somebody's roast is if they're delivering it poorly.
You have to be funny. That's the thing.
You really do. Like, what's her face? My sister sent me the woman who roasted the shit out of Kevin Hart at Tom
Nikki
Brady's.
Glazer?
Oh.
Dude, everyone is talking about, like, because Nikki's done a few of them, and, like, that's the thing, is that the Comedy Central roasts have gotten, like, I think it peaked with Charlie Sheen. Like, Charlie Sheen, like, during Tiger Blood and Winning and all, like, it was, like, the perfect time for him to be roasted. And then it used to be appointment viewing, and people literally look at the roast of Donald Trump as him kind of, like,
I don't even remember that happened.
And every single joke was like, "Oh, well, I hope you run for president, you dumbass." And it was like people almost borderline point to that as a turning point for him being like, "I'm going to do it." And it's like this pivotal moment in history.
That's actually upsetting.
It's crazy. But then like it's like Rob Lowe and I can't remember who else, but it was like the guests weren't like no one I like Rob Lowe. I think he's perfectly fine. But no one's like, oh, you know who needs to get it? Is Rob Lowe.
Exactly. But Tom Brady needs to get it.
I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars he got from Netflix, but it must have been substantial because it was crazy. The jokes that were being told were insane.
But also, that Kevin Hart had to send in a bill for all his burns too, because he got it so bad.
But that's the thing is, I think Kevin Hart probably has like a Netflix deal because he has all his specials and a few movies and stuff like that. So he's probably like on retainer. But just like, and you knew Jeff Ross was going to be here. Jeff Ross is the roast guy. But just like,
I would have liked to have seen Seth at Tom Brady's too, because that New England thing. Tom Brady's in Ted 2. He's in the Family Guy show.
I wonder if he turned it down because I feel like
he likes the guy too much.
It's very possible because I would have loved to hear those jokes too. But just like,
is it possible too that like some of them couldn't do it because they're like Comedy Central hoes? Is that possible? Not necessarily.
I don't know what's going on with Comedy Central now. I just feel like I know they're still on the air, but I feel like they've lost their mojo because, they're not doing like the half-hour specials was what I grew up with. I discovered many comedians. I discovered Dane Cook from his half-hour Comedy Central special. Mitch Hedberg, Greg Giraldo, like all these guys that just became household names.
Yeah.
I remember and it was so crazy to see because I remember seeing Pablo Francisco's half-hour special where he murdered, and then like 10 years later, he's on Last Comic Standing, and I was like, how is this guy still in these things? He's so funny, and that's just how cutthroat the stand-up comedy world is, where someone that talented and funny still has to, like dance for their supper. Yeah,
wow.
like it's crazy, or sing for their supper is the phrase.
Dance. I know what you meant.
Yeah, but just yeah, I don't, and they had Key and Peele, they had Tosh.0, and now all those things are gone. And so like, I really haven't checked in. I don't have cable, so, maybe I'm completely off base on this, but now that Netflix has their roasts, it's like, what does Comedy Central have? It's pretty crazy to see a television station that had this identity of like, we're going to put up comedians, we're going to have great sketch shows. Right. Was Kroll Show on there too?
I don't know.
I think it was, maybe. But just they used to have really great crank anchors. Like, they had so many shows. And then also, like, that's where I started watching Scrubs, was on Comedy Central.
Really?
Like, I never watched Scrubs when it was on
I didn't know
TV.
It was on there.
And, like, on Saturdays, they'd have, like, a 4-hour block of Scrubs. And that's when I was like, oh, this show is really good.
That's kind of wild, actually.
Yeah, it was. And that's when so you got put onto all these different comedies that maybe you didn't see while they were, airing weekly. And so it's so crazy you brought up Comedy Central. I have not thought about them in so long, and just thinking about it now, where that was appointment viewing, was like, this person's special is coming out on Comedy Central. Wow. You got to watch it. Kevin James. And that's why it's so funny with Kevin James is a crazy success. Some of his movies aren't that funny to me. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, how? Have you seen Don't Sweat the Small Stuff? It is the funniest hour-long special. It is so good. Brian Regan, like, I can keep going with all these comedians I saw original on Comedy Central. And now it's so strange to see them not have an identity anymore.
Yeah, because Netflix really is cornering, I would say, the comedian market, right?
Yeah, because didn't that just
Netflix
happen?
Is a joke.
Yeah, that just happened this last weekend or 2 weekends ago or something.
But like, I don't hear of Hulu putting out the specials. You know what I mean?
It's just Netflix. Like, that is a Netflix special is the new Comedy Central special. It is like an hour long. That was the big, Matt Rife when he was going viral on TikTok and everything, and then when he got his Netflix special, it was supposed to be like the next step up, and it was the step in the wrong direction.
It's okay. He's not hurting. But like, I mean, HBO also was like where I found Eddie Izzard and Dave Chappelle.
That was the R-rated. That was the.
You're watching Eddie.
Was it Eddie Murphy on?
Eddie Murphy's was on there. Chris Rock's was on there, and it was good. I also loved the Kings and Queens of Comedy. I loved all that shit. I really did.
At least once a month, I'll watch Bernie Mac on Kings of Comedy.
You know what?
Him downstairs. Like, it's just, me and my friends say that to each other all the time.
I have Dave Chappelle's Killing Them Softly probably memorized down to like the audience laughs. We had that CD played.
His first two specials, and it's crazy because you listen to his second special now, and you can tell how much he was fed up with stardom. With like, I'm at Disneyland, and someone's like, I'm Rick James, bitch. He's like, hey, can you not call me a bitch in front of my kids? And like, it's a funny joke, but then you look at it with what happened with Dave Chappelle after, where he kind of disappeared, and it's like, he really didn't like being that famous. Like, it was a real problem for him.
That's interesting. Yeah. You can't blame him. It's one of those things that you don't really know until it starts happening.
Chappelle Show, Comedy Central.
So that's interesting. We're also on this Comedy Central tip. We finished The Curse, which is Nathan Fielder's show with Emma Stone. And it's weird, and the ending is weird, and it was hard to watch. Like, it's a commentary on reality TV and all these things, and these are the worst people you've ever met with no comeuppance whatsoever. And we wanted to watch reality TV show more than this. But, like, we've struggled through it, finished it. Now I want to watch all of Nathan For You. I've only seen it in, like, the smallest bits and pieces. So that's Comedy Central, too. I had a point, and it's gone now. But that's what we're doing. We're watching Nathan Fielder. He's also a great Comedy Central find, too. But that guy's, like, genuinely a critical genius. Something about him.
I think so too.
Something about him and because even the rehearsal, there's exploitative issues with what he does, especially if you look at what happened in the rehearsal. But I do think there's genuine remorse there. Like, that wasn't his intention, was to be exploitative. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
I will not say another word because they're going to do another season eventually. I don't know how they could because of what happened. What made that series, special is the wrong word, remarkable, is something that he couldn't have even imagined was going to happen.
Well, that's why it's so crazy with Sacha Baron Cohen. Just like, I know his 3 different characters, like, all had their movies, and then everyone was like, that's over. And then he did the America For You or something like that. This is America or something like that. And that's
Danny Glover's song. This is America.
That's Donald Glover's song, not Danny Glover's song.
Thank you. I say it every time. I really do. Thank you for correcting me.
And then, so there was that where he got the most insane clips out of people again. And then he did Borat 2. Like, how do you get away with Borat 2?
Wait, which movie are you talking about?
Borat?
Hold on, I've seen Borat, and Borat's great. Borat 2 is great.
Yeah.
I liked it.
No, he had a show on Showtime.
Oh.
What was it called?
So welcome to our Q&A. I didn't know there was another TV show.
Yeah, he had one. It was called like something in America or something like that.
Got it.
Who is America? Who is America? So like
Who is America? Wow.
Yeah. And there was some crazy stuff in that show as well. But
it sounds like we should. God, we could talk all about this, and maybe when we start doing a Lord of the Rings podcast, we'll do a Comedy Central podcast. Yeah, but I would strongly recommend watching the rehearsal. It's uncomfortable. The first episode is cringe content, but if you can stomach and get past it, it's something different. He's created a whole different thing.
Okay.
And he just spends money. It's incredible.
Yeah.
He just spends money. All right. So today we have questions from our Patreon members, from our Discord members, from Twitter, from your Patreon. So let's get into it. And then after that, I want to discuss with our audience and you next steps for this podcast. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. I love that we can talk about pretty much anything at any time.
Yeah, easily. I love it.
So why don't you go ahead and ask your homie Captain Hopter's question for us?
Have you
Is this
seen...
the only question you have?
This is the only question I have.
Okay,
I begged and pleaded with my Discord for weeks, and I got one question.
That's all right.
Have you seen Futurama's Bender's Game, which is a Futurama movie? I have not. I looked up the plot to it. It's quite a bit. I didn't realize it was a full movie until like 2 days ago. And then what do you think of Lord of the Rings influence in media from Futurama to Led Zeppelin? I think this question could make a good episode.
Wow.
Lord of the Rings influence, because have you seen Bender's Game?
I have not, actually. Is it new?
It's from 2008. So
okay. So it was when the series was out originally. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Me neither. But I will speak on, and we can both speak on Lord of the Rings influence on media, which was like earth-shattering.
Yeah. No, I think, from Led Zeppelin to pretty much anything fantasy, right?
That's the thing, like, even talking about Lord of the Rings as a whole, we have almost borderline 100 years worth. If not, it's coming up, right? 1929 is when it was written, or The Hobbit was written. Was 1929?
I'm super not aware of that.
Let me see.
That is not information I have in my brain.
1937. So I was a little bit off. So we're 80 years, 90 years almost. But that is a question in of itself, but just the movies itself, like how so many people tried to immediately jump on the fantasy bandwagon and be like, okay, what's the next Lord of the Rings trilogy? I mean, even just trilogies itself, like everything is a trilogy now. I mean, even the new Apes movie just came out, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, following the Andy Serkis trilogy. And they're like, well, we want to do another trilogy. And it's just like, okay. Like very few things now can just be one movie, or just movies as a story pertains to. It's always got to be a trilogy.
I think the penchant towards making a prequel, sequel, trequel, I don't think that's Lord of the Rings specific. Because, I mean, think about like Terminator. They won't stop. They'll find a way to reboot that. And it was when they Terminator 1, Terminator 2. I think there was a Never-Ending Story 2 that didn't do well at all. Like, I think
people defend that movie, by the way.
Do they?
People defend Never-Ending Story 2.
You can't even defend the first one, so I don't know.
What? Okay, you're out of line. That's a great movie.
Go back and rewatch it as an adult. Have you? When was the last time?
I watched it 2 years ago.
And did you fall asleep?
No.
It's boring.
It's not boring. You're crazy.
Boring. I love Falcor like anybody. It's boring.
It's not. It's anything but boring.
Well, so this is interesting because I feel like it relates to this question, and so maybe it will kind of help me like focus on the question, because Ulrich asked this previously, and I don't think we answered it correctly, and so he asked it again. What are your thoughts on the Tolkien effect? Tolkien defined Western fantasy in Lord of the Rings, and how that boils down to everyone has to be white. I know it's not necessarily the same question, but I want to like put those two questions together, I think it's so unfortunate that people have that viewpoint when it comes to fantasy, where it's like we have to be like, well, they're from what's the country in they're from Dorne. They're from the sand place in Game of Thrones, so now they can be brown. It's like it doesn't have to, like, people just have. Oh, is that a thing?
I don't think it's a thing, but it's like it felt that way in Game of Thrones, where like almost every character was white until they introduced Pedro Pascal and everyone from Dorne, and it was like, oh, okay.
Wait, Pedro Pascal was in Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
What?
That was like his big breakout.
Also, are we calling Jason Momoa white?
No, that's the thing. Everyone from Westeros seemed to be white. Everyone from like the different country, which was the Dothraki, were like from the eastern countries. They were from like a different part of the world.
Well, so in some ways, I can understand if you, well, I might not be the best person to talk about this, so I'm going to try to
No. 2 white people are definitely the best people to talk about this, truly.
Let me put it this way. White representation and like white everything is not new to Lord of the Rings. And it's Lord of the Rings is symptomatic of it. We have this feeling that like the round table, like the only people that were allowed to hold titles and land in England were white people. The stories are only about white people that like lived, through the dark, like everything was whitewashed, I guess is my point. And so I don't think it is the Tolkien effect. I think it's white supremacy effect.
That's the thing is I don't want to pin this on Tolkien when like just because his was the biggest novel doesn't mean it was the only one doing this.
Because what I was hesitating to say, and this is where I may be speaking out of turn, there were not only white people in England, but the only people that were allowed to have influence for the most part were white people. So if you're writing about royalty or like prominent figures in that area, I would say, even though Middle Earth is a long time ago, quote unquote, in our past, the men of the East are like South Asian men or East, Asian men. Like it's kind of represented that way in the Lord of the Rings movies too, which is genuinely problematic because you're just making those guys the bad guys. There's no nuance in those men, right? So that's problematic in one way. I don't think Tolkien was doing that to be like, look at all the bad brown people. You know what I mean?
Well, that's so funny. Like, and it's so crazy that they cut out that speech from Faramir in the movie. Where it's like when he kills, the guy on the
only brown person that we see, basically.
Literally, and he's just like, you wonder what his name was. And was his cause more just than ours? And it's like, why he was so far from home. And it's like such a great, like, moment of like, yeah, we are fighting evil, but they think they're a just cause too. They think they're doing the right thing. And also, they've probably been hypnotized and, like fooled by Sauron into thinking these things because he's the great manipulator, he's the great deceiver, and so
they're trying to survive, just like Haldrag, right? Who like his main goal was to survive, and so I'll praise you, Lord Adar, or whatever.
Yeah,
like maybe not as ruthless and self-serving like as a Haldrag, but like they're trying to live in the shadows of this great lord that they can't contend with.
Yeah,
you're totally right. To cut that out. I think they didn't have time to give human sides to those characters, just in the same way that it really wasn't until Rings of Power that they gave orcs a moral standing too.
Which, I disagree with that. I don't care about the orcs. Like they're
fair.
They are literally fantasy creatures that are evil. I'm okay with that. Not everything needs to be like, well, there's a gray area. No, there's not. They're just bad. They're bad.
I don't know that. Let me put it this way. It made me think about things in a way I hadn't before. And there is problematic issues with like coding for orcs and goblins in like Lord of the Rings. So like I'm sure they're using the Rings of Power as an opportunity to talk about that too.
But I feel like that's like 3 or 4 layers deep where it's like not everything needs to be that deep.
Sure.
Like I don't. It's a very dismissive thing, but I think I said it to someone the other day where I was like, the definition of it, like, it's not that deep. Like, and it's just like, that's how
your TikTok.
Yeah. And I was just like, it's just not that deep. And that's
how it doesn't have to be also, right?
It doesn't have to be. That's the thing. If you like, we've praised Adar monumentously on this show, and I'm very excited to see where they take his character. And his character is about these orcs are my children, my brothers. I'm creating a home.
They deserve a place to be.
Yeah, they deserve a place. So that is an interesting storyline. But on the other hand, I'm also like, they're evil. They're like, you can say like, oh, they deserve a home. Meanwhile, they're slowly stabbing a woman in the chest because a kid won't give up a key. It's like, okay, cool.
Right. And you know what? White men are capable of doing that too. Brown men are capable of doing that. Like people can be evil too. And so you can indiscriminately kill evil people if you're just told that, if you're only shown one side. So again, I hesitate to say that it is Tolkien in total. I think it is an issue with Western storytelling in general to only show it from the white gaze. And it's really hard. Someone it would be really hard to explain this to is like my father, because the TV shows and movies cater to that white man, and so he doesn't understand why a black man might be considered to be 007 when, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, that's where it's like, it's not that deep. Like, we also are a little bit undoing this programming that we have in our brain that it has to be white people. And
well, especially like Doctor Who, like the new Doctor Who's a black
Right.
man. And before that, I don't know if it was Jodie Whittaker right before him.
It was.
Okay, so I didn't know if they went back to someone else or
they went
whatever.
back to Tenet for a special.
That's what I thought. Okay. But it's just like Doctor Who's not a human being. It's literally like a cosmic entity. And I am no Who expert. Never. I've seen like 3 episodes, so don't quote me on this. But I know he's not human, or they're not human.
Right.
So it can literally take whatever form it wants to. And
not wants to, what it regenerates into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's literally on the page right there in front of you.
But the reason why it becomes a talking point is because people who are angry about having their power lessened just as tiniest bit or having to share it make it this big talking point that it doesn't deserve to be. I think sooner, let's look at it like Tolkien gave us this drawing board on which to play. He never said anything was definitive. He always said, "Oh, it appears to be," or "I uncovered it that way." You know, I'm also misquoting him too. His world gave us rings of power to play in and redefine who we see as what color and why not, you know?
Yeah.
Or what, I actually have a feeling, I've kind of talked a little bit about Círdan, the shipwright that
we
is
see
going.
his hand in the trailer.
We did? Was that what we think?
Because the 3 rings. I was watching like a breakdown and they're like, everyone is assuming that it's Galadriel, Gil-galad, and Círdan, and that we're going to meet him.
I actually thought that the Asian elf, or at least I'm assuming she's an elf with the bow.
In the circle shot? Yeah.
I was like, why not make her Círdan? Like, that could be interesting. Like, and people would freak out about it, but like, why? Like, who cares? So yeah, I don't know exactly how else to talk about. I'm not educated enough on this subject to talk about it, but that's what my take is. What about you?
I think it's the same. I think it's just like old media was all white. I love watching the 10 Commandments every year, or I went and saw Lawrence of Arabia in theaters, and it's Obi-Wan Kenobi in brown face being a Middle Eastern man, and it's just like that's just what Hollywood and media was.
And it was wrong to do it then. It's, like I don't ascribe to, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't ascribe to like, hey, they didn't know any better. They fucking knew better. They
knew better. They just knew like their audience, like there was no working actors because they weren't being hired. Just,
right.
Like,
it was a problem they created.
It was a very systemic problem that they created. And so they're like, yeah, we'll just put Alex Guinness in brownface. And even, I don't know about to this day, but it's like, it's so shocking that the foster mom from Terminator 2, I know this is a deep cut, the foster mom from Terminator 2, I can't think of what the actor's name is in brownface in Aliens. She's the badass Marine with like the headband and everything.
No.
And so it's like, it happened in Lawrence of Arabia, and it's still happening 50-something years later, 40 years later.
Totally. Alex and I watched The Mighty Boosh, which is it premiered in early 2000s, and main character's in blackface, playing the Jimi Hendrix character. Not great. Emma Stone is supposed to be a half Asian woman in that Bradley Cooper movie, and that was 5 years ago,
Yeah.
We're nowhere near.
Have you seen the clip? Who is it? Sandra Oh, where she's like accepting the award or something. Is it Sandra Oh? I can't remember who's on stage, but she's like, oh, and I'm glad, like I'm actually playing an Asian woman. And you hear Emma Stone go, "I'm sorry," from the audience.
Oh my God.
It's really great. It's good stuff.
At that point too, you're so far removed from criticism until it like comes down on you like that. My point being, I don't even know what my point is. I think, let's put it this way, so much better to have the conversation, and it's a widespread conversation as opposed to a really insular conversation. So that's a good thing. I think just this awareness is a step in the right direction. I don't know that we 100% answered Captain Hopper's question.
About I think they go hand in hand with the influence, where it's tough to revisit, the mid 2000s where everything, like 2005 is one of the worst movie years, but stuff like Aragon came out because of this. You had so many, like, I think probably Game of Thrones probably got pushed to the forefront of just like can we adapt this? How can we adapt this?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I you know what it is? It's fantasy isn't like a huge thing I run to, so I can't point to other like versions of it easily for me.
I mean, it's such an undertaking where, you know, it's like, that's why I feel like Swords and Sandals movies don't get made anymore, because it's not like, let's make a mid-budget Swords and Sandals movie. It's like, no, you have to build sets, you have to make, you know, all these costumes and swords, and at least get, you know, 100 to 200 extras if you want to green screen the rest of them. Like, it's an insane undertaking, and it's the same with fantasy, where we see it, even, we've talked about it, even in Rings of Power, $1 billion production, the costumes don't look great sometimes, and some of the armor doesn't look great, and some of the backgrounds, you can really tell when Elrond and Celeborn walk up to Moria, you're like, oh, this doesn't look good. Like, and when, you know, you see Lord of the Rings, when they walk up to the stone door, like, oh, they're by a lake. There's this whole mountain set. It looks so good. And so it's this giant undertaking where, like, people dove headfirst into it, and then they're like, oh yeah, this is really hard to do. So let's stop doing that.
Sure. I think, and I haven't written it off totally, and I think Chris Pine hasn't even written it off either. I think we'll see another D&D. I thought that was successful.
I'd love to. I thought it was great.
It was great.
But it's just so tough because that was like another $200 million budget. Where
but it paid off though too, right? Like,
I think in
the end, for the quality.
Oh no, I think it was a great fun time. I just don't think the trailers did it any favors because everyone was kind of writing it off. I wasn't publicly, but I was like, you know, we'll see. I like the cast.
Sure.
But it was a grand old time, and I think it really surprised people, and I think it will make its money back. I think it's already made its money back, but I think it will profit by, like, you know, it'll be on, you know, Max, and then Hulu will buy it, and then Netflix will get it, and it's just like, it'll keep jumping around and play on TNT forever. So it's one of those movies that's going to live on for sure. I don't know if we'll get a sequel.
I think Chris Pine says that he's like hopeful for another one, or that it's not quite done. And I think it is one of those things that it really had a second life with everyone saying, oh, you should watch this. Or like,
great word of mouth. And
I was told to watch it by Pandar because I was playing a bard, and I don't like playing bards. And it was really taught me a different way to play a bard, which I thought was great. So yeah, I think you can do these. That's, again, I'm sure they were hopeful to create a franchise.
Yep.
But also they didn't have to. Why not do another D&D one-shot? You know, do a one-shot series of here's the next, you know, party that we're getting to learn. I think I would enjoy seeing things like that.
I would too.
Are you up to another question?
I'm up for another question. Let's go.
Okay. Let's see. Another question from Ulrich. What changed for you between your initial viewing and your more recent one? And I think this is for Rings of Power.
I'm assuming so. My initial viewing, I was quite bored with the show. I thought the pacing was all over the place. I didn't know where the story was going. I thought the characters were kind of one note for the most part. With this more recent viewing, I enjoyed the show much more. I saw the nuances that they were trying to go for. Maybe I'm like projecting my own nuances onto the characters. My biggest problem was the guess who Sauron is aspect of this first season. That still doesn't land. I like the Harfoots even less.
Yeah.
That whole story didn't land at all. But I thought the setup, if like, I don't know how they could have advertised this as a prologue. I don't know how, but if they would have somehow told that to us, like, this is a setup season.
The story begins, right? Like,
exactly. The legend begins, or like, discover how you love the trilogy. This is how it all started, or something. I don't know. But again, like, I go back to how the BBC does it, where it's 3 episodes that are 90 minutes long. I think if they would have done that, that would have crushed, because you could have had each contained story with a solid ending of like, hey, we're going to do Galadriel jumping off the ship. to meeting all the Numenorians, to everything, and then the next episode, the stranger and, you know, all the witches and stuff like that, and then the third episode is Elrond and Durin and all these things, and everybody meets at the end, and okay, there we go.
I could get, you have it pitched that way, and I could get behind that. And then even have a fourth episode where they all clash, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, they get to the apple field because the volcano blew up and it's burnt, and then Numenor's there. Yeah, that you totally sold me on that idea.
So I think, and also, you know, with watching this series and then, you know, kind of a few weeks later getting the teaser for it, I'm like, I'm fresh now. I'm into this, so let's go.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
if I hadn't rewatched it, I'd be like, oh yeah, this thing has happened. Like if we weren't doing this show, I probably wouldn't have rewatched season 1. I'd watch season 2 for sure because of who I am. But I am fully refreshed in what I think about this show, and I've accepted it for what it is. Like it is a setup season. It is a prologue season. Okay, what have you got for me now? We are set up. You know what? The board is set. The pieces are moving. Let's go.
Okay, Gandhi. I love that. Gandalf.
Oh, I thought you called me Gandhi.
No. I call Gandalf Gandhi. I don't know. I just call him Gandhi. Yeah, I think I'm with you that now, after having watched the series in total, the Who is Sauron doesn't have longevity. I was looking forward to these shows being something I could watch every year. Like the movies, you know, like why not? Or maybe every couple of years. It's an undertaking at this point. If every season's going to be 8 episodes, an hour and change or whatever, that's a lot. But I want it to be comfort food. I don't give a flying fuck whether the stranger is or isn't Gandalf. I think, let's just put it this way. My opinion on the show hasn't changed. I like it. Still, and it's like this unnameable thing. Something is missing for me, and I don't know what it is.
It's, you know, I hate to bring up TikTok, but it's like every once in a while I'll get, you know, just to compare apples to apples. Like I know people get so mad when you compare fantasy series to each other, but I'll get, you know, 2-minute clips of, you know, one of my favorite scenes is Peter Dinklage and Pedro Pascal, you know, in the dungeons talking.
This is mind blowing to me.
It's, oh my gosh.
That he's in this. I'm blown away.
And it's just, you guys, I love Battle of the Bastards. I love, you know, Battle of Black. I love the big fights. But the things that people post on TikTok and that really want to see are these dialogue scenes. And we didn't get those in this season. I rant and rave about how good the reveal is of Sauron, and that's probably the only thing, like if I was scrolling, I'd stop and watch that because it's really good of just like how he's manipulating her, how he's revealing himself to her, that she's found out, and he's like, okay, now I have to try and fool you and deceive you, and how am I going to get out of here? And it's really, really good. And maybe we'll get scenes like that, but it's like, there's a few good speeches here and there, but it's like, there's not good like dialogue. Like,
you know what it is, and it remind you. God, now it makes sense. You putting that into perspective, and I remember this during the initial viewing. Both Sauron, Halbrand, and Galadriel are chewing the scenery. They're trying so hard to act. Yeah. They're putting it all in their face, and you know what it is? It's probably because the dialogue isn't good enough, and they're like trying to work because they're not bad actors.
No, not at all.
So why are you trying so hard? And it isn't until like they're in their back seat and he's like, I don't know, why are you talking about her dad? You know, like to give us the mind games for sure. Trust your audience that we can follow that. That's a really good point because I forgot about that. They just tried really hard, and that was a turnoff for me, big time.
And it's like when Farazan is like, well, if you do a favor for somebody, they'll owe you a favor. It's like, oh my. Your kid is 30 years old and you're just now teaching him this? Like, oh my God. Like this.
It's like, I thought that only applied to sexual favors, Dad.
Oh, I thought that since I was born into power, I didn't have to do any favors, but this is a revelation. I thought I could just like tell people what to do my entire life.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, no, that's it exactly. You know, I didn't note that this question actually went really well into what you were talking about with why other like fantasy movies didn't work. But Ulrich also did ask, why do you think all the epic fantasy movies that came after Lord of the Rings failed? Was it because they tried to force their settings into Lord of the Rings format? Narnia being the best example. But I think we kind of got that question.
Narnia is so crazy because Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is an absolute banger of a movie.
Is it?
It is so good. I will defend that movie with my dying breath. If there are no fans of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I am dead. It is a genuinely great movie. And then I've seen I saw Prince Caspian once when it was in theaters, and I haven't seen it since. And I don't think I've ever seen Dawn Treader. I think I've seen parts of it. It's the last Narnia movie that
was there supposed to be more?
I think there's 7 books. I think
so
but Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is the 3rd book, which is the weird thing.
Right.
Is that they started with, I think there's 2 like prologue books, and they started with the most interesting of the starters. And it's a really great book, and it's a really good movie. But I think it was just tough with, diminishing returns. And it's so unfortunate because there is such a rich tapestry to be mined from that. And I'm really curious about the Greta Gerwig Netflix series.
Right.
Because, she's got it. She has got the juice right now. So, I mean, I don't think, when she signed up for Barbie, everyone was like, what is this career decision? I don't get it. And it proved everybody wrong. Loved it. Great stuff. What is she going to do with fantasy? Because
sure.
And I'm not doubting her. She has made 3 impeccable movies. Lady Bird.
She can do epic.
Yeah. I love Little Women. I grew up with the 90s Little Women. Like, my sister had that on repeat. Like, that was my household. And so even when I talk to my mom and my sister, like, I don't know, it's not the Winona Ryder version. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, that's your dad's David
adorable.
Lynch's Dune.
That's adorable.
But it's fair because that movie's also very good, and that cast is insane when you look at it. But
Patrick Bateman, man, are you kidding?
It's wild. Everyone go look up the cast of the 90s Little Women. It is insane.
Yeah.
But I am super looking forward to her Narnia series, and they're talking about the Harry Potter books and how they're gonna do 7 seasons, and people have talked about the Dark Tower, the Stephen King book, and that would need 7 seasons because that the movie, the Matthew McConaughey Idris Elba movie, was a mess and a disaster. And I've read the Dark Tower. It's a messy book. It took 30 years to write for a reason. He got run over by a truck, and that's in the book.
Oh my God!
It's very
in the process.
It's in the process of doing a lot of drugs, going through rehab, getting off of drugs, getting hit by a car. It is his full life in there, and it is very apparent. So I don't know if that would ever work because you would need something like Rings of Power, 5 seasons, boom, money up front. Basically, I think it's going to take quite a bit to derail this Rings of Power train of no one watches season 2, or maybe after. I think everyone's going to watch season 2 because I think they're kind of in the same view as we are. We're going to give this another shot.
I think people want it to be good.
I think everyone wants it to be good. Everyone loves Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
No one wants this to be bad. And even if fucking Velma got hate watched so much that it got to season 2, Rings of Power is going to be just fine.
No,
good
I think
Lord,
that was
Velma
it.
is, oh my God. I watched the pilot episode because I was curious. I wouldn't call it hate watching, but I'm like, this can't be that bad. I find Mindy Kaling occasionally funny.
Sure.
It's rough.
Really?
Jess, watch the first episode. Just you don't have to torture yourself. Don't watch the full season.
No,
it's okay.
I don't. I won't.
25 minutes, watch the pilot episode. It is pretty terrible.
Yikes. Yikes. All right, we got another question from Arsenal Roy 2K, who is also our subscriber at the $10 level. I said his name incorrectly last week. It's Jesse Glapsy. I can't say it right, but it starts with a G. So the Fellowship somehow ends up on present day Earth, and they all have to get jobs.
Oh,
what job does each member end up with? I think we can work this out together.
Okay.
So let's go with Frodo.
Frodo?
Is he a personal assistant?
No, Sam is a personal assistant.
Oh.
Sam is like a celebrity's personal assistant, like go-to guy, like works for The Rock or something like that, and is just
he's like the social media guy,
social media
fixer.
He's like, what's Jimmy Kimmel's guy? Guillermo. Like he's a public face. Like people know who Guillermo is.
I see.
That is Sam. So I know we said Frodo, but Sam is a public personal assistant that everybody knows and likes.
Is he Kim Kardashian? Because Kim was like Paris's
Boom.
Friend.
Yes.
But then he becomes famous.
And becomes famous. Yeah, absolutely.
And his like business acumen is, it's great. Perfect. Love that. All right.
And then he becomes like a motivational speaker and like super famous,
Wolf of Wall Street.
G5ing all over the place. Crazy. Yeah.
All right. Frodo does, or Merry, Pippin, any thoughts?
Merry and Pippin obviously do something together, just like they're doing in real life.
Hold on. They're podcasters. Like they are right now.
I could kind of see it. I was gonna say they open a pub or something like that.
Yeah, they have to get everything.
They're like the Property Brothers. They have like their own reality show together.
This is a fun question to like, what reality TV shows do they have now that we've done?
For sure.
That's really they are the reality bros for sure.
Yeah,
real T-bro. That's good. That's good. All right, let's see.
Frodo, I think, is a teacher. I think Frodo is either a counselor, a therapist, or a teacher.
I feel like he had to go through some trauma to get to there, though. Like, he was like a prisoner of war. And that's the thing,
I think he takes like the most gentle job. Either like I think he could be like a tenured college professor where he teaches, philosophy or, something like that. And he's tenured, and he just so he just doesn't care. Like, he's like, you can't fire me. Like, I'm good. So he just says like whatever. Nothing like controversial, but just like, oh, you have an 80% absence rate. I don't know. Like, do 10 jumping jacks in front of class, and I'll give you an A or something.
Because he knows that life is more important than he has his priorities straight for sure. I love that. But like, is there a Grey Havens on Earth? Is there Valinor on Earth? Like, because he also wants to retire too.
What is it when everyone loses in the playoffs? Like, oh, they're going to Cancun. He's going to Cancun.
He's in Cancun for sure. All right, what is Gandalf? What is Gandhi doing?
Gandalf, that's tough.
That is tough.
Tough.
I know. He is working at Universal Studios at the wand shop and is doing the wand selection for people.
I think he's in Vegas. I think he's got a residency as he's the new Chris Angel.
Yes. That's so true.
He's got his abs out. He's, floating on top of the pyramid, and it's like, Gandalf, you're a mind freak.
Oh, fuck. It's so upsetting.
It's very bad.
It's so true.
Yeah.
All right, Boromir lives somehow. What is Boromir doing? Oh, is he a Sigma bro?
I don't know. Okay.
Come on.
No, he's not. I can't do that.
Is he the Rock?
I think he's the Rock. I think he's healthy masculinity, but just like, get your ass up and go do it. Like that kind of stuff. I don't think he's
motivation.
I don't think he's selling a course or anything like that. He's not like, get your Bugatti or anything like that. But I think he is like a very masculine figure that people like.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay. That means Legolas next?
Legolas is at EDC this weekend in his rave outfit and just going he's a homeschooled kid,
and he has a sugar daddy for sure.
Definitely has tag your sponsor, has a sugar daddy, sugar mama, whichever one you want.
Daddy.
I think it's daddy too. I think he's one of the people that you don't understand why they're famous on. He's very famous on social media because he's stupid gorgeous and he goes to the best places.
Totally.
You never see his sugar daddy.
No.
You don't know how he affords everything he does. he signed like his sugar daddy signed like an NDA because he's like, I just want to support you in everything that you do. And you see him in Bali in one weekend, he's at VIP EDC the next weekend, and then he's in Dubai, and then he's in New Zealand, and then he's like, at Tokyo Tower, and then he's in Shanghai, and then he's like on the Eiffel Tower for New Year's Eve, and you're just like, who's paying for this? You don't have a job. But he's got 20 million followers on TikTok. He does the little dances every once in a while. He does get ready with me's all the time. Like,
he was like the pioneer of going live on TikTok or something.
For sure.
Oh my God. I remember those days where it's like, why someone just sitting there and talking to the camera? Like, he was doing that. But that's
the thing. He was he's the original YouTube crowd where like he was vlogging all the time before it was a thing, before he even got paid to do it. But now he's like grandfathered in. And so no matter what he does, he gets millions of views. He's semi-retired now, but he's just living it up.
I genuinely know a person like that who I worked at a restaurant with, who he changed his name because it was so common in order to like become a little bit more successful in the business one way or another, and ended up dating a huge YouTube star and married him, and now is like just living the life as like,
hell yeah,
it's great. I am a little concerned for them. I don't think they're well. Like, I think they're all on drugs, but that's neither here nor there. But like, yeah, great. Then that leaves
Aragorn.
Nope.
Gimli.
Yeah.
I think Gimli, it's so funny that like so many of our people are going to be influencers, but I think it's just like the world we live in nowadays. But I do think
you don't think he's working on an oil liner?
He's just like a blue collar guy.
He could be a blue collar guy that then had a TikTok. Like
that, but that's what I'm saying is that he's not sacrificing of who he is, and that's why people like him.
Sure. Yeah, he has. Here's the thing about Gimli. He says bad things every now and then. And you're like, ooh, I don't appreciate that fiscal conservatism or, that.
That's just who he is, man.
But you also like him because he is real. Like, there's. My sister occasionally sends me like this Italian Goomba dad. Get the fuck up. Stop. Fucking put a meatball in your goddamn mouth and go to work. But like, I like that also. Like, because the guy's like, you know what I mean? So Gimli's like, you gotta get that work done and you got to go do the thing. And then, and then he's eating a meat pie later or something.
Yeah, it's like, it'd be reductive to be like, oh, he's, in the mines, like working. It's like, no, like he's built for more than that.
No, but I also do think he can do or attempts to do like the world's dangerous. What if he has like a reality TV show where he's like attempting to do the world's dangerous shows? Or if he's like an ice truck driver.
Oh, he's what's the dirtiest jobs guy? Mike Drucker?
Right.
That's who he is. So he just goes around and does like the most dangerous, like not the dirtiest jobs, but the most dangerous jobs. And that's his show.
That's it. Him and Bear Grylls and like this guy, like they're
but
all...
like that's the thing is that he's real, not like Bear Grylls. He's better than Bear Grylls.
Isn't Bear Grylls real?
I thought he like faked a bunch of his stuff.
I'm sure he did. It's TV. I also don't care. He still ate crow. So
right, yeah.
Like he does some things I'll never do. And if he's got a bottle of water on the other side of the camera, I'm okay with it. Who
Whatever.
gives a flying fuck. So now that does leave Aragorn.
Aragorn is like...
Is he a stay-at-home dad?
No, he's... I think he is a good dad. Like I relate to him like Ron Swanson in the real world, where I think he would just be like a park ranger and just like he clocks in, all of his employees like him, but he might not be like friends with them outside of work, and then he just goes home and spends time with his family.
Yeah, because I was at first my instinct was going to say like senator or something, but like he's not crooked. He's not a politician, No. But you like want him to be one. But yeah,
I think he could be I think he'd be like a small logging town mayor. Where like politics don't really like he's just like he ran for it when he was 30 and he's been mayor for 30 plus years because he just does that good of a job in a town of less than 1,000, and he goes to work and he comes home, does his mayoral duties, and
then he does his husbandal duties.
Oh yeah, he does.
He also goes viral because he saved a kid in the middle of the street from like
that's
a
the thing,
runaway
there's a story about him in like the news that goes viral of like, oh, this guy's been mayor for 30 years. This town has a zero, like he's mayor and sheriff, and this town has like a 0.000 crime rate. One time someone stole a Snickers and he sat down the kid, and now that kid is the president or something. I don't know.
Sure, totally. Yeah, he's got a good impact locally for sure. Yeah, because if he's not going to end up the king, you don't want him to be president. It's absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. I think that's very good. One last question that I wonder if you could answer this from Geeks with Shields, aka Ulrich. Why won't Jess play Helldivers with us?
I don't know. Why won't you play Helldivers with us?
Because I took it off my computer because I needed space.
Oh my gosh. Someone bought that for you.
No, I'm going to play it again when I don't like sitting at my computer playing video games, and I am so busy with all of my podcast stuff that I don't have the time to play it. So it's not personal, but I will play it eventually again.
Feels personal.
You should. Yeah. You know what I love? When people make you feel bad for not hanging out with you.
Yeah.
It really makes you want to go do that right away. Like, it's my favorite thing.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I'm glad that it's working.
It's so working. So those are the questions that we received. Thank you guys and fam to sending these questions, letting us know how much you care about our opinions, which are very valuable. Now that we've kind of gone through our Rings of Power series, I think we still do have like chasing Gollum to talk about. I kind of wanted to like say it first here on the podcast. I think we're going to make the video version available during the Rings of Power season on YouTube.
Yes.
I think we have to do that. We want growth out of this podcast, and that's going to be the surefire way to do it. If you're joining us because you saw our react to this show, to the Rings of Power, welcome, new friends. We have a Patreon over at patreon.com/podcasts of the rings. So we kind of need to know from you, what value do you get out of this show? What would give you more value? What would incentivize you to join Patreon? Because we want to keep on doing this show, and we need to make it work in order to keep on doing this show. So we want to hear from you as to how you think we can do that.
I'd love to hear it. I'm really excited for season 2. And especially like if we're just going to be posting our stuff online, because when I type in Podcast of the Rings, Nerdrotic comes up with 2 very hateful videos about how bad this show's going to be. So, you know,
yikes.
I love the algorithm. It's so great, and it's always promoting positivity and really thought-provoking and helpful conversations.
Yeah, I think we're in the wrong business.
It's Jessica, it'd be so easy to get rich. Like, we've talked about this. We could pivot, and guys, we wouldn't need a Patreon.
It would be a heel turn and a half.
It would be a heel turn, and I'd wipe my tears with $100 bills right after I wipe my ass with them.
I'm like real quick to becoming like a trad wife, quote unquote, like influencer. Like, I put my husband's shoes away and I'm going to teach my daughters to do the same thing. You guys, I'm going full bore. You're not going to recognize me at the end of this.
Jessica loved that kicker speech. Absolutely loved it. Was just like writing notes down like, oh, I do have a college degree, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't be a doting wife.
I don't have a college degree.
Even better. Yeah, even better.
It's so good. Fuck me, you guys. All right. Make sure you're following both Ben and I on Twitch. He is at TTV Strider. The E is a 3.
The E is a 3.
And I am at Jessica Nerdy, occasionally streaming over there. And Ben and I are going to be doing a Transformers Most Bangable stream with friend of the show, Scott Rubin. So make sure you're involved in our Discord. There's a link in the liner's note. You can comment and hang out with us there, but you also get notifications as to when we do some streams. And if they're listening to us on their preferred podcast player, Ben, what should our homies be doing?
Just give us 5 stars, baby. It's free. If you feel like, giving us a review, take a little time out of your day, that'd be lovely. But, 5 stars, you just swipe. It just like literally swipe.
Really?
I give every episode 5 stars, so I don't know if that helps or if I'm just like doing it into the
It's like the meow meow beans. Beep, 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 beep.
Meow meow beans, exactly.
Just make that noise every time you give us the swipe. Boop, boop,
Yeah.
boop. Tell your friends, and until next time,
May our paths meet again.